All right, welcome to episode 45 of the At Bat podcast presented by War Media, where we give you our thoughts on the latest Chicago baseball news as well as take a trip around the league. I am Saul Rodriguez, along with my War colleagues Gabe Wilkins, who you can see on War Media's Open Run talking hoops, and Chris Pennant, who you can also see talking hoops on the Skyhook podcast, talking all things Chicago Sky with James K. How are we doing today, guys? How we doing, Gabe?
I'm doing well, man. Maintaining. It was a long election season, but outside of that, last minute voters showing up on Clark Street, I'm good now. I'm well rested. I mean, it's nothing to me.
Yeah, I've done the elections before, like election judge. I know it's I'm not different from, I don't know if it's different from what you were doing, but yeah, it takes a toll. And for how you did it, from the sound of it, like that, yeah, you did way more work, and that's like, yeah, I can't even imagine. You probably drained that. So
Early
again,
voting. I
yeah,
did
oh yeah,
early
early voting,
voting.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I did it for 2 weeks. And that was
Woo!
my second time doing it because I did it during the 2020 presidential election.
Yeah, oh yeah, I
You know,
remember
you
you said
you deal with you deal with a variety of personalities, shall I say?
that.
You know,
To
but
say the least, yeah.
But I'm somebody who take pride in keeping my composure and staying mild mannered. So I
I
I
get
was
that.
able to navigate it, but it's over and done with now. It's cool. So I'm not really complaining. But I think it's something that a lot of people should take up, especially
Yeah.
when, so many people want to go about voting, and I'm all for that. But
Mhm.
like it's important to know your rights too and how the process works. And I feel like it's no better way to figure out how the process works until you work within it and you learn some things, from that vantage point.
Yeah, it's like I think everybody should try like any type of like sales job, like associates, or even like a waiter at a restaurant. Like everybody should have to do that, because like you get a more understanding of like the way the world works. Some people don't ever do that, and then there's assholes forever. But that's for another podcast. Chris, how you doing, man?
I had a bit of a miniature season that Gabe had because I was back at my polling place yesterday, like the last election, and there were not as many characters as we've had. We had our guy in the afternoon who doesn't trust touchscreen voting, but
Yeah.
he's nice. He's a nice
Uh,
enough dude. He's just he's a little weird. Everything else was pretty smooth. We had to watch the precinct across the hall get done at like 7:45, whereas we left at 8:45 because they had like a quarter less voters.
Dang.
A quarter of the voters that we had. I don't understand how, just some wonders about ward breakdowns and precinct breakdowns as usual, but it was exciting. I think the results were exciting because I know a lot of people um, that my friends. I haven't heard from my mom. I realized that was actually kind of weird, but they're very excited about the results, and I am too. I'll say that. I'm hopeful, um, and like a lot of people said, keep up with things, keep up with the process, make sure that you hold the new administration completely and fully accountable. But I'm excited.
No, yeah. I mean, I unfortunately do not get to vote, as I live in the suburbs. But it was cool to see. And when we talked about it a lot with me going, like I said, still going to school at Roosevelt, like we get to talk about it all the time. I know my professor, John Fallon, he always brings it up, and we're talking all the time about the election and Paul Vallis and Brandon Johnson and all that. So yeah, it's cool. It's cool to see that, and that it's over, and yeah, it's a positive result. So hopefully it means well for Chicago. So here we go. So it's been a great first week of baseball. Of course, it's nice to every day, like to just and I know, and Gabe, I know you're still on NBA, because NBA is still it's still going strong, and the playoffs are coming up. So I always got to keep an eye on. It's the time of year where it's kind of hard sometimes, at least for me, because I have to keep up with the Bulls while also keeping up with the Cubs, and still looking and watching the Sox game too. And it's like a whole other thing, but it's still nice to have baseball games every day, seeing like, the Mariners and Angels at like 9 o'clock, and it's cool. But for the Cubs and White Sox, it's been not necessarily a consistent start, but it's like the Cubs are 2-3. We're recording this on a Wednesday when they got rained out against the Reds, while the White Sox are 3-3, and they took care of the Giants today to tie the series one game apiece. But what's you guys' initial take on just baseball over the last week, or whether it's the Sox or whatever? We'll start with you, Chris. What has been your first impression of the first week of baseball?
Oh, baseball in general?
Yeah.
Yeah, the rules are taking effect. I think
Hmm.
we've seen the rules take effect, and we're starting to see some of the impacts of those rules. Jazz Chisholm on the Marlins got injured today,
Hmm.
trying to steal a base, and we anticipated seeing a lot more steals with the limits of pickoff throws. Manny Machado got called out on strikes in a kind of a tight situation, the clutch situation. I'll say that much, which we saw in spring training, we saw in preseason, and I think at that point, I figured that guys, even though they have their routines, were going to be more cognizant of it. But there you go, and I think we're outside of that. You're seeing how players have adjusted who played in the World Baseball Classic, but there's nothing really outside of individuals. I don't see anything really demonstrative. The Phillies are 1-5. The Rays are 6-0. I don't anticipate those being the norm going forward, even though we have high hopes for the Rays. I don't think and even if the Phillies have a lot to contend with in their division, I don't see them going 200 over the course of the entire season, So I think individually we're seeing some interesting things. I liked Jesus Luzardo's performance today. I always thought that he got pushed out of Oakland a little too early. Pablo Lopez had a nice outing in his first few starts. And so I think the Marlins are, if not necessarily a team to watch, a team to keep your eye on. I've been waiting for them to really kind of get over that hump and be contenders or at least competitive. And if there's one thing to keep your eye on that I've seen so far, it's the Marlins.
That is true. And I mean, I think they are going to go as far as, I think they mirror Jazz. So hopefully Jazz can come back soon, because I feel like he was going off last year and then got injured. So, we really want to see a full year of him because of how talented he is. And also so people don't say that there's an MLB The Show curse as well, because every time they're at the cover, and especially, he's on the cover of it this year. So, but no, you're right. And the Marlins always have good pitching, starting pitching. They even after trading Pablo Lopez, they still got guys in there. I also like Luzardo. So yeah, hopefully they're take a positive step forward and see what happens. But Gabe, what about you? Anything that you've seen over the first week of baseball that stood out to you by any chance?
Haven't had really much of a chance to sit down and watch baseball games until prior to this afternoon when I was watching the Giants and Sox. But based off of what I have seen in limited highlights thus far, I would have to say that I've been impressed with the play from the Texas Rangers through the first 6 games, finding a way to take down the Philadelphia Phillies to start the season. Offense has been red hot, and they look like they have a respectable pitching staff for once and for all, with guys like Jacob deGrom, Nathan Eovaldi, and John Gray in the mix, who, if healthy and consistent, can probably give them, some solid quality starts game in and game out. I'm just intrigued to see what this group can do in an AL West that is loaded. And although Houston has gotten out to a slow start and we expect them to, change that and win the division rather easily, that second spot is always up for grabs, it feels like, in the AL West. Some years you've had the Angels ride it. Some years you've had Oakland ride it when they were good. Seattle last year finally breaking through with and overcoming the longest playoff drought in North American sports. I'm wondering if Texas can do that and make it an interesting AL wildcard race where there are going to be a couple of AL East teams involved come season's end.
Yeah, and you bringing up the Rangers, you're right. They're playing so well right now. They got Mitch Garver with the 1186 OPS. You got Josh Jung, who's out there, Adolis Garcia, like all these dudes going off on the Rangers. And yeah, look, I watch and I don't know if I'm in the minority here, but I feel like I don't really hear much positive about their stadium. But do you guys like their stadium?
No,
okay.
It's just because they finessed Arlington. They finessed them for a new stadium.
You're right.
I understand that playing outside in Texas is a crapshoot, but at a certain point, climate control is just going to make it's not necessarily the best thing for sports or people in general. Like, they built a dome in Los Angeles. It doesn't rain that much in Los Angeles. Why do you really need climate control? Like,
it's a good point. I actually never thought about it like that.
They had a stadium. It had some uniqueness to it. The Rangers had those years of being decent and those years of being very, very good. And all in all, I was like, you know what? This looks a cool looking stadium. I understand that you're going to get a hard infield because Texas is hot and hot and hot and hot all summer long. But then they were like, you know what? Let's build a dome. Let's build a climate controlled roofed stadium. For what, bro? For what? That stadium does not hold nearly as much intrinsic value to me aesthetically as the ballpark in Arlington did.
Yeah, I like the ballpark in Arlington. I liked it. I just thought the only thing I didn't like about that is that I felt like that the fans in center field were like so far, or like you know how they have like over the batter's eye, they have like those their seats, right? Am I wrong? Am I wrong on that? They're like
they had a berm out there, right?
Okay, yeah, okay. Because I'm always just like I always saw people and then like that's so far, but it was a cool stadium though because it was different and like it just felt so big. But this one also feels very big. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I might be in the minority because I don't hate it. I actually like it. But and I think also because it was one of those things where maybe because also we saw it a lot in the playoffs in 2020, it being the host of those games there. So I don't know, but
And it was a big time ballpark in the 1990s too.
oh yeah, that
they
one,
had the All-Star game in 1995. That ballpark was up there with like Oriole Park at Camden Yards and Jacobs Field, which is now Progressive Field, is like the three big marquee stadiums during the 1990s era. That actually had a lot of amenities for their fans that older stadiums such as the cookie cutter ballparks did not have. So that it was different.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned Camden. I mean, I feel like that stadium it's talked about a lot, but I feel like it's not talked about nearly enough. Like, it's got to be talked about more. Such a nice stadium. But anyways, moving on to we'll start off with Chicago baseball. So we'll start off with the Cubs. I know my fellow Cub fan Miles is not here today, but I'll take it from here. And I'll say this: I'm not necessarily disappointed in the first week. They lost 2 games out of 3 to the Brewers. They I guess tied 1-1 against the Reds as that third game was postponed due to rain. I'll say this: the first year, looking at the Brewers lineup, and we were talking about it in our preview, Chris. I know Gabe, you couldn't make it, but we talked a little bit about how the Brewers lineup leaves a lot to be desired, as always. And then you got guys out there just raking, like Mitchell, and it's just I don't know. I mean, he walked it off today. He's a rookie. He walked it off with a bomb off the Mets. So look, I mean, they're getting it done. It is what it is. And then the Cubs go over to Cincinnati, and they got guys like Friedel out there, Vossler raking off them. So I'm like, oh my goodness. And look, it's not to say it is what it is. The Cubs bullpen is pretty bad. It's I know they're missing Brandon Hughes and whatever. Cody Hoyer will one day pitch for the Cubs, I hope. But it's just not fun. But anyways, positives here though. Dansby, of course, having a historic start to his Cubs career. Ian Happ also having a quiet, start quietly great start to the season. Just another reason why they should pay the man. And then Stroman and Steele, they dazzled, and then you had Drew Smiley and Hayden Wesneski and Tyone, who kind of left something to be desired, but didn't have terrible starts. Their stuff was just not there, especially for Wesneski, who I was hyped on Monday, man. I was like, man, it's fine, or I was on Tuesday. Sorry. They, finally get to see this guy, as part of our rotation now and like consistently. And then he didn't have his stuff against the Reds, but other than that, I mean, Bellinger has had a great series in Cincinnati. He's looking a little better out there, but man, I look at this Cubs lineup and the thing is like watching it every day is like, I sometimes feel like I should be getting paid to watch guys like Hosmer, and and Madrigal, like, I hope nothing but the best for these guys, but because they're my team. But it's just come on, man. Like, and Bellinger in that first series looked horrible too, and I'm like, here we go again, and it's gonna be terrible again. But he's been looking a little better in Cincy, like I said. But anyways, what anything that you guys have heard of or seen? I know Gabe, you said you haven't been able to watch a lot of the games, but just some of the stuff that you've heard, at least from Cub fans or something like that, from the first week of Cubs baseball. We'll start with you, Chris.
I haven't heard anything on the regular, I'll say that. But I was surprised to see that they started off the season 1-5. That I caught a few minutes of the game. I think it was the first game that Smiley was pitching against the Reds, and I was worried for them that it was 3-3 after the first. Like, with the way that the Reds general manager has talked about them, that's not a series that you want to come out on the short end of. And I know, like you said, they had the game postponed yesterday due to weather, and they won the second game. But it's early. That's the thing. It's early. We got teams who were looking fantastic, but the Rays are not going to win every single game. I don't think they're going to win 2/3 of their games. That's pretty tall order. And the Cubs, again, they're not going to. So I said 1/5. That meant like 16%. They played 6 and they've won 1. They're not going to win 16% of their games this year. Now, it's funny you bring up Nick Madrigal, because I think there's a lot of White Sox fans, like maybe 10% of myself included, who wouldn't mind having him back to solidify second base. But I think when he's in a lineup of a team that's kind of retooling, rebuilding like the Cubs are, some of his deficiencies get exposed. But we talked about these guys, right? Hosmer and Bellinger were reclamation projects. Trey Mancini is just trying to kind of parlay. He's going from contract to contract at this point in his career. He's a good guy. He'll steady a clubhouse. He'll hit decently well for you. But and Jan Gomes, those are the type of guys that you're trying to hold the line with while Hoerner develops, and Swanson hopefully continues doing what he's doing this year. He's not going to hit 500, but hopefully if he hits like, high 300s, then you got what you paid for with him. But that's what you're kind of looking for. You're looking for some guys who can maybe give you, like, we'll re-up with them or give them a 2-year deal down the road. But it's early days. I think that's the most important part of it. Now, what you're looking for that you have yet to see, that you'll hopefully get a better feel on by the end of April, is how the guys outside of Stroman are going to perform in the rotation. That's still more important than the lineup to me. It always has been. So can you get good games from Thompson, Tyone, Steele, Alzolay? Can you get good performances from them? Even Michael Fulmer, who has just never re-achieved that level that he got Rookie of the Year with. That's what you're really looking for, in my estimation. You're looking for quality from the pitching staff.
Yeah, no, you're right. If the pitching staff is on, like, these guys, they have enough in the lineup to score. I mean, they got, what I expect guys from Bellinger, Mancini, Wisdom, like, just run into some homers, right? It's like, or just some, like, but Mancini, at least, look, the thing is, Mancini, at least he has good, like, to what I've seen compared to Bellinger, he's had good at bats. It's the guys like Hosmer and Bellinger, some of the bats at bats they have, they just, like, they stand zero chance. And Bellinger, I've seen that plenty in with the Dodgers. Mancini, I didn't really see that much, even when he was on the O, especially when he was on the O's. But I saw him obviously in the playoffs with the Astros, and that wasn't very, very, good either. But yeah, you just hope these guys are able to put up enough runs. And look, again, more positives. I'm glad to see that Hoerner's doing well, Swanson, Happ, those main guys, and then you're going to add Seiya a little bit later, right? That because he's close to playing some rehab games. I know he's been taking some or he's been playing some simulated games. So yeah, so hopefully he's going to come back soon and just add to the power and just add to the lineup. But yeah, the one thing I keep looking at is just the pitching and because I like the guy. I really genuinely like the guys in the rotation right now with Smiley and Steele, and it's just like you actually enjoy watching every 5 days a guy out there. So, Gabe, have you heard anything from Cubs fans though that either complaining yet or at least or maybe excited yet when it comes to, like, for example, Dansby? Because I know for sure I'm naming my first kid Dansby.
I don't really talk to Cub fans too tough outside of you, Saul, during the regular season.
All right, so
no disrespect, but I will say this though.
Damn.
When it comes to the Cubs, I'm just trying to figure out who they are and what is their identity. Like a few teams that I keep an eye on somewhat throughout the course of the year. I see some young talent that's on the roster, but I'm trying to see guys take that next step. Who is that guy? That story will be told as the season goes along. But it's like when I look at the Cubs, I see a team that some days, as Chris alluded to, when the pitching's on, they can win some games. But when that pitching is not on, they look like a bottom feeder. And this is a team that has, as you alluded to, Saul, reclamation projects who they can either cash in big on or seek to win with. But if they can't win with them and they can't cash in on them, then they just kind of stuck where they are. Where is that place? I don't know just yet, but they're in an interesting place to me. I think that, like I said, they have some young talent. Nick Madrigal, he's a guy who, as talented as he is, he's been known for committing a lot of blunders, be it in the field with his base running and even sometimes with his glove. And that is how you get out of the league faster than you stay in it. So I just got to see more from them, but they're a team that over the next couple weeks I seek to watch a little bit more of after I'll probably get a synopsis in my own rather on the events that are occurring on the South Side. But right now I'm just trying to figure out who are they, because I don't know. But it's good to hear that Dansby Swanson is playing well and living up to the contract that he's got. I didn't expect anything different, especially with him being called upon to be a leader in a clubhouse who players that don't really have the experience that he has outside of Cal Hendricks, who, as we know, is injured right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, with Dansby, it's one of those things where, yeah, it's like Chris said, I don't expect him to be this good the whole season, right? But hey, also what I was thinking, and this is just me just like fantasizing, is like, what if Dansby is able to well, you know what, we'll call this like a too early to call type thing where it's like overreaction, right? But I hope maybe this whole thing of him being the man, right, on the team unlocks a certain part of Swanson we haven't seen yet, and he's able to do that. That's obviously what I hope. Improbable, I think, personally, because I think they still need another player in there, like another star. But never know. And we'll say it was interesting to see that Marcus Stroman was the first pitcher to be called for for a violation. He took a little too long. He's the first that. So it'll be he'll be part of trivia forever as the first pitcher with a violation. So yeah, and you know what? And it was one of those things where I was talking to a couple people that weren't watching the game, and I will say one person that doesn't actually like Stroman. This is he's not a Cubs fan or a Sox fan, but he just doesn't, and I don't agree with that. And obviously, Stroman's my boy, but he was like, "Oh, did Stroman throw a fit?" And I'm like, "No, dude, he actually likes the rule. He doesn't mind the rule, and like he actually like just played it up, like he just kept going. He's just like, okay, well, whatever. I need to move on to the next. And I love to see that because that's how it's supposed to be. Not like Machado, but we'll talk about Machado in a little bit. But yeah, other than that, looking ahead now, I mean, we were talking about Texas. The Cubs are playing Texas, but at Wrigley. And look, this is where the schedule actually, for the Cubs, they actually have a hard schedule in April, and maybe it's a lot of teams because I know the schedule is a little different now, right? But and we'll look at a little bit of the White Sox one too. But now after they're not playing the Reds anymore, that game from Wednesday, April 5th has been rescheduled to September 1st. But the rest of the schedule in April, they play Texas at home, they play Seattle at home, then they play at the Dodgers, at the A's. I mean, it being on the West Coast, we'll say it's a little tough just for being there. But then they come back home, play the Dodgers for 4, play the Padres for 3, then they go at Miami. And then it calms down a little bit when they play at the Nats. Oh, that's in May already. But anyways, you get the point. They actually have a pretty tough. So I think, look, I still like playing as a fan of my team. I rather have them play against good teams than bad teams. It's just always better to watch, right? But it'll be interesting for sure. I mean, I think Gabe, I think for sure. I don't want to say for sure. I think you'll have a really good idea who the Cubs are at the end of April. I think. Because of the way that the schedule set up there, it's going to say a lot. But other than that, do you have something to say, Chris?
No, I was checking it out because I wanted to make a comparison.
Mm-hmm.
And the Sox have Pittsburgh after this as they're going on the road. But they finish out with the Giants, who, weren't necessarily picked by anybody to finish first or second in the West. But they've obviously played tough, and they have a pretty good pitching staff. Then after Pittsburgh, they go to Minnesota. It's they got Baltimore at home, they got Phillies at home, and then the Rays and the Blue Jays. So I want to check.
Ooh, it's actually pretty stacked. No, you're right.
The Rays and Blue Jays away
Yep.
is tough. Like,
And then you come
I
back home
really,
and place the race. You guys play the race for 4 after that at home.
yeah, man. There's a lot. It's like I think that if there's anything the baseball got right, it's the I don't know. I don't want to call it the balanced schedule, maybe the
Mhm.
global schedule, just getting that chance to play every single team. But I think the toughest part of it is that for this first period of time, they've had one off day already, and then they've got 2 off days until the end of the month, and then May is another 2 off days. So it's going to be kind of a run getting to June for the White
Yeah,
Sox.
you're right. And I mean, at least they have like a couple series. I mean, not to say they're actually look watching. I've watched a couple Royals games too, and honestly they're like one of those teams that it's fun. They're fun to watch. I don't know what you guys think about that, but I feel like they're fun to watch, even though they're still like a couple years away or something. Gabe, you're laughing. What do you think?
I mean, I like watching Bobby Witt Jr.
Yeah.
I think he's a hell of a player to watch. I think he's very fun to watch. Kansas City's a team, they when they play against teams in the division, they compete very hard.
Mhm.
But I'm not sold on Kansas City. I'm not sold on Detroit. I expect them to
Oh no.
be at the bottom of the division when it's all said and done.
Yeah.
I think Kansas City is in a place where they're trying to figure out how they're gonna build a winner similar to what they had during the Dayton Moore era back in 2015 and 2014 on the way to back-to-back American League pennants and winning the World Series in 15. So and they haven't been in the playoffs since they won the World Series in 15. But they got some guys that are young and fun, but I'm not really checking for them, unless if I'm checking for Bobby Witt Jr. I'm just not.
I was watching the game and like it was one of those things where I was like, okay, well, again, I'm not comparing them. I'm not saying like they're gonna be a playoff team,
I
but
get you.
I look at I was like, Wade Jr., Melendez, Pasquantino, Sal Perez. Like it's like for a team that's like for a team that's gonna be bad this year, I feel like at least they got some talent to watch. That's for sure out of there. And they got Greinke too, right? I mean, again, obviously, but
Brady Singer.
Brady Singer, I like
That's
Brady
true
Singer.
too. I'm glad
Yeah.
you brought up Brady
Has a
Singer.
lot of potential.
Yeah.
I remember I was riding the Amtrak down to St. Louis and listening to a Sox game. I think when it was 21 when the Sox won the division, and Brady Singer was handcuffing them boys. And this was like the early part of the year when they were still riding the Ricky Renteria wave.
Mm-hmm.
And he has a lot of potential, man.
Yeah, he does.
Reminds me. I feel about him the way I felt about Casey Mize like 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Which I still have hope for Casey. I still got hope. He kind of reminds me like, look, and I'm not saying he's gonna be this, but when he was coming up like 3 years ago, as you're saying, Chris, I legit thought he seemed like a baby like Garrett Cole kind of, where like he had that like grit, threw hard, like he has the a plethora of pitches, but yeah, who knows where he's at now? I think how old is that guy? Probably like 28 or something like that now.
20. No, 20. He's only 25. It's been 3 years.
Oh, still. Oh, damn. Okay,
Yeah.
I thought he was older for some reason.
Did he have a Tommy John injury?
Yeah,
He did. He did.
Damn.
Yeah, I know that's what kind of ruined the whole like. Not that the Tigers were going to be this good team a couple years ago, but they they were going to have like a healthy Mize, a healthy Schoolbull, and it just didn't work out because Mize was injured, and obviously yeah. But anyway, now kind of moving on. We'll move on now to the Sox. They again 3-3 start to the season. They tied with a series against the Astros that was super entertaining there, 2 games apiece. Then they have they're playing a series against the Giants right now. They're tied at 1 apiece in that series. But overall, it's been pretty impressive. Like in the sense of for that series against the Astros, they could have easily won that series when you really look at it. Yohan Moncada, like, dude, that dude is raking right now. Hopefully for you guys, that's gonna be the season for him. Maybe this is it right here. Cease gonna cease because he really is just doing what he does. I mean, how many Ks he had today? 9, 8. Okay, yeah. So really liked also Giolito's like the way he's been grinding out those starts. He's not. I don't think, and I think it's safe to say that he's still not to where you want him to be. But I feel like you still see a little bit of. I feel like every time I watch Giolito pitch, he has like an inning or two where you're like, that's it. That's like the 2019 Giolito. It's just, yeah, but hopefully it works out for him because I love that guy. And then Jose Abreu just looks weird in the Houston Astros colors. Just I don't know why. And then I do want to get your guys' thoughts on Oscar Colas and how he started off with the Sox so far. But anyways, I'll back away a little bit. Gabe, what are your first what are your initial thoughts on the Sox so far, 6 or 7 days in now?
My initial thoughts are, they're in an okay place. Anytime you can split a series with the defending World Series champions, you will take it. Although I feel as though they could have easily won all 4 of those games, if not 3 out of 4 of those games, if it wasn't for, failure to execute with runners in scoring position. If it wasn't for letting guys on base with walks that led to extra base hits that Houston cashed in on and rallied back into some games to not only take the lead, but win, which they did in games 2 and 3. I think if you change that, that's a series where you could win 3 out of 4 games. I was impressed with the starting pitchers. I think the starting pitchers from top to bottom gave the Sox a great chance to win every ball game. The bullpen, they got work to do. I think everybody knows that. And it's no secret. Like I said, Kendall Graveman, what he did in the 7th inning in the second game of the year against Houston, you got a 1-run lead. You walk in Martin Maldonado. No disrespect to Martin Maldonado. He's one of the best defensive catchers in the league. But everybody knows that he's the weak link of Houston's offense. And that's why he's batting at the bottom of the order. You just can't afford to walk guys like that. Because when you do and you get to the top of Houston's order, that's where you got your masters and your run producers. And that's what they did. I think going with Diekman in that specific matchup over Bummer, when you were looking for the lefty versus lefty matchup, I think that was an early season mistake by Pedro Gaffal. But I think that's something that he'll learn from. And I think what Pedro's trying to do is just see how guys read and react to different situations. He's still trying to get an assessment of his roster. But I didn't agree with that move then, and I sure as hell don't agree with it now. And it's not because of the way the game ended in a loss, but, when you're shorthanded already in the pen with guys like Crochet and Liam Hendricks, who, thank God is cancer-free now, and that, that's great news to hear, and he should be back rather soon, but you can't afford to just, keep playing around like that. You got to put your best guys up when they had a chance. And when you have your top guy or one of your top guys in Graveman giving one of the best offenses in all of baseball, albeit without Altuve, albeit without Michael Brantley, free base runners, they're going to make you pay every time. But to me, it's all about executing on the offensive end, staying disciplined at the plate, not putting together shitty at-bats, which is what we saw them do on opening night. And thank goodness, for the performance of Dylan Cease, because if not for that, they're not in that ball game. But it's still some things that Cease needs to clean up. And I think we saw that today. Even though he struck out 8, he walked 5. And he wasn't able to gather a quality start. Granted, he was pitching with flu-like symptoms, but I'm pretty sure if you talk to him behind the scenes and ask him could he have did a little better, or if he thought his performance could have been better, he'd probably tell you that. Because that's the next step that Dylan Cease needs to take in order to grow as a true ace in this league.
Yeah, no, and look, you make a great point because we talked about this last year as to that's if Cease has any weaknesses, it's the walking. I think that's like because you ask any starting pitcher, right? One of the things he doesn't want to do is just walk guys. I think I almost feel like sometimes you rather almost give up a hit than walk a guy. That's my guess. But the way they talk about it, right? And like I feel like that's what's been the separator for Cease of like being, even though he's elite now, if he doesn't walk anybody, I mean, he's probably the best pitcher in the league at that point because it's ridiculous, right? So yeah, that's probably what I thought. Also, you were talking about that game where one of the games or the games that could have won. Yeah, that second game of the series where Yordan Alvarez cleared the bases on Diekman. I mean, that was one of those things where I don't know about you, but Diekman coming in to face Alvarez, I kind of had that feeling where I was like, this dude's probably going to get a hit out right here. Because it felt like, if you guys remember the Mariners and the Astros ALDS when Robbie Ray came in and Alvarez hit that walk-off home run. That's what it felt like. It's just like this dude, it doesn't matter if it's a lefty or a righty in there. Like Alvarez is just, he's such a beast. So, yeah. Anyways, Chris, what has been your impression of the Sox so far?
I watched an interesting John Boy media video on that particular moment, and it was funny because John Boy goes in depth about things, and he talked about walking Maldonado first. His next point was to Benintendi letting that bloop single drop in, because I didn't get to see that game with the sound on, but he had the impression, he felt like everybody he was watching the game with, and he said the announcers, I don't know if it was the Houston announcers or the Chicago announcers, felt like Benintendi could have made that play. And just showing him on the replays, he was talking to himself like he could have made that play. He evidently, according to Jimmy's interpretation, he said that it was Benintendi was kind of thrown off by the short fence in left field with the Crawford boxes, and he was playing in a little odd spot where he didn't feel like he is in the right spot. That being said, I'm most concerned about the bullpen because I agree with Gabe. Pedro Grifol still trying to get a feel for the roster. The hitters, the everyday position players, for the most part, have done fairly well. But the big keys have been hitting with runners in scoring position, which is not good right now. And to me, I really want to see the White Sox do something that aligns with the best teams in the rest of the league when the bases are fucking loaded. Until today's game, they were 0 for 10 with the bases loaded.
Yep.
10 chances.
Yep.
No walks, no sacrifice flies, no hits, and 6 strikeouts. I was so enthused by the fact that Yoan got a single with the bases loaded. And, actually, no, let me run that back. I expect Yoan right now to get a single with the bases loaded. The way he's hitting, he took what it looked like a fairly tough pitcher on a day with a wide strike zone and odd conditions, and he took a low sinker and hit it right where you want to hit it. Gavin Sheets getting a single with the bases loaded really warmed my heart. But I still need to see this team elevate. Like, I know that there's been contention and discussion and disconcertion over how the White Sox approach at bats. And I think there's still something to them not swinging at every first pitch, no matter how pitchers are doing. They can still be more selective in when they take the first pitch and when they swing at the first pitch. But when you get the balls up high, line drives, they're hitting more line drives, but elevate, hit these balls out of the ballpark, man. They've had some home runs, but I want to see this team really start hitting the ball out of the ballpark, or at least hitting it hard and deep with runners in scoring position, with men on second and third, with the bases loaded. Until as such time as I see them really start hitting when the bags are full and making it look like they are the ones who are they're putting pressure on the other team rather than it looks like all the pressure in the world is on them, I don't know what's going on. And then the bullpen, Jake Diekman is not here. Jake Diekman is not it. Jake Diekman is not that guy. They took out, and then Pedro Grifol took out Aaron Bummer today with 2 outs, even though he hadn't necessarily pitched his best, and brought in Reynaldo Lopez. And we know Reynaldo's not a closer. I think he has the potential to be a setup man, but he's still learning his way around a relief role. And that was really fucking nervy in a 3-run game, bringing in Reynaldo Lopez when he could not find the strike zone. These guys just are not really finding the strike zone on a consistent basis. There's a baseball book I have from the 40s, and there's a scene in it where a guy gets sent down. It's a Dodgers book. So he gets sent down to the Montreal Royals, and the owner's in his office is like, either you can't or you're too afraid to hit that strike zone with your first 2 pitches anymore. And you know what they did? They sent him down to AAA. That's what I need to see. I cannot stand watching guys get to a 2-0 count and then have to battle back. You can't do that in this league anymore. You can't. Moneyball changed the game. guys are looking to get on base however they possibly can. And if you get them to a 2-0 count, either they're going to know that a heater's coming or that you're still going to nibble the edge of the strike zone looking for a swing and miss. Like, we're in a swing and miss and walk league. And guys right now are so confident about walking on the White Sox, it's disgusting. Pittsburgh needs to be a sweep. I know this might sound like an overreaction, but the Pirates aren't going to be doing anything this year. Sox have to go in there. They have to make Rich Hill think about retirement, bro. Like, that man is old. That man needs to think about his pension. The White Sox need to make him think twice about suiting up again this year. Until such point in time as they are like, people are like, you're getting all the hits in the world, but you're not scoring runs like that. That's all I got.
But Gabe, I know you want to say something real quick, but all I want to say with the Pirates real quick is just watch something like some dude like is like, I don't look. No. Hey, Brian Hayes is good though. He's good.
Sure.
Brian O'Neal Cruz too.
Yeah, O'Neal Cruz. My bad, my fault. The one guy should be should be talking about, because he hits the ball like a million miles an hour. So yeah, but you're right. It should be a sweep, but it's one of those things where it's just classic Central baseball. It doesn't matter who it is. But sorry, Gabe, go ahead. You wanted to add to his point.
I mean, Chris makes excellent points, especially when it comes to the runners in scoring position. And to add to his point on that, you take the White Sox most recent win prior to this recording against the Giants, winning 7-3. They were 7 for 12 with runners in scoring position. And that was the story of the game to me. You talk about Gavin Sheets coming through with a single. He also came through with an RBI double. Both of his RBIs coming in 2-out situations. I think he was huge today in the absence of Eloy Jimenez. And they're going to need that continuously from him, no matter how they play this DH situation, which I believe Pedro Gaffar will be seeking to platoon him alongside of Jake Berger in that DH role, who was just called up from AAA Charlotte. So if they can do that on a consistent basis, I don't think they'll have any issues winning games. As far as Raylo and, the jam and situation he got himself in today, I was proud of the way that he was able to get out of it, and that, he didn't quit and he was eventually able to locate the strike zone. You hope that that's a confidence booster for him moving forward. And I give kudos to the bullpen for holding the fort down in that game specifically, minus Joe Kelly. If they could continue to do that, then things can be on the up and up for them. And yeah, Pittsburgh is definitely a series where you have to take care of business. You definitely want to close out San Francisco on the right note, but I was impressed with the way that they bounced back from an opening day game that was a disaster, to put it nicely, where it looked like Kopech just couldn't really find his groove. And not only find his groove, he never really even sought to mix it up, really, because everything was fastball, fastball, fastball. And he's going to have to get to a point in his career where he learns that you can't just overpower guys all the time. You got to find a way to add some finesse to your pitching game, whether that's with your off speed, such as your changeup, your slider, and all of that. And things will come for you in due time. But when I look at the Sox and the road coming up, yeah, they got a tough road, but I like, for the most part, that guys are hitting. But it's all about just executing with the runners in scoring position, because when you don't do that, you're not going to give yourself a chance to win. I don't give a damn who you playing, whether it's the Pittsburgh Pirates or the Houston Astros.
Yeah, and you know what? You brought up Reynaldo Lopez, and I was like, if he was going to – how about this? I wanted to ask you guys about him in general. I know he's – obviously, Liam Hendriks is coming back sooner rather than later, which is awesome. But if you guys had Lopez as your closer for 2 months, is that something you guys would feel comfortable with, or what have you guys seen from him, like in these first few games? Like, do you think he would be okay for like a couple months?
I trust him.
Okay.
And the only reason why I say I trust him is when he's locating that fastball, guys can't catch up with it. The only problem I had with Raylo thus far in the games in which he has closed, specifically the game that I caught, which was opening night against Houston, was him getting too cute with Yordan Alvarez, leaving a slider up when you had that fastball working and he couldn't catch up to it. You know, there's no need to
Mm-hmm.
get cute and mix up your pitches. Now, today, the slider proved to be his best pitch until he eventually wiped out Peterson with a fastball when he found a way to locate it inside the strike zone. But earlier throughout, you know, his day, he was struggling locating the zone with the four-seamer. So the slider was working today. But usually the fastball is his bread and butter. But I trust Raylo for the short term. I think eventually he's going to become an all-star closer in the league. I do believe that. But is like for a 2-month stretch, I can, but I think it will be closer by committee. And I think when Garrett Crochet comes back, that's going to give Pedro Grifol another option, an option that he needs immediately, especially when this White Sox bullpen only has 2 other lefties besides him, and Aaron Bummer and Jake Diekman, who I don't think any Sox fan is able to sleep well at night knowing that they on the mound in a close game.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. Jake Diekman has been rough. I know he had like a couple good seasons back in the day, but damn, I mean, he's usually not on a good team. So like that's one of those things. It's like he should not be on the Sox, a team that's like trying to compete, trying to get into the postseason. But Chris, do you agree with any of those sentiments though, of what he said about Lopez and just in general of like he said he eventual all-star. I like that take. What do you think, Chris?
I think he's got the potential for it, and I like Raylo's temperament in general. Like he's a fiery competitor and not afraid to display it, like not afraid to put his emotions out there. And I think that he's given that closer role at least for the first series of the year, and he took it on. He took it on. That being said, Gabe said when he's locating that fastball, we don't see him locating the fastball as much as you want, especially for a closer. Like his slider is good. It's not the best slider on staff, but it's top 20%, I think, for the White Sox pitching staff. His slider, when it's on, even his fastball moves a lot. He got a swinging strike on Jock Peterson to end the inning today on a riding fastball that tailed away, and that was really the first good fastball I'd seen him throw the at bat. But when he's got that fastball going, it's really, really good. He could just go fastball slider and be a solid closer or setup man. But I think I would be more trusting of him as a setup man than a guy like Aaron Bummer, because we've seen in the past Aaron Bummer have that big sweeping breaking ball and a plus sinker. And I don't know about anybody else. I'm still more comfortable with a closer who can get bad swings and bad balls in play rather than just going for strikeouts. Because Liam Hendriks, as good as he is and as great of a person as I feel him to be, we saw it in 2021. When he gets balls up, guys can hit home runs off of him. And they can be bone-crushing, game-tying, or go-ahead home runs. Love Mike Cameron. Daz Cameron is not that dude, but he hit a 2-run homer off Liam Hendriks. You know, I wouldn't want to see Raylo as closer for 2 months. A month, I'm good with. If I see him really take that role head on and just start closing things down, then I will fully say I'm wrong and go forward another month. But right now, I don't want to see him as closer. Aaron Bummer does some things that still baffle me sometimes, and his expressions, it looks like it baffles him too, but I would still rather see him closing over Reynaldo Lopez at this point. And yes, please get Jake Diekman out of here. Get Joe Kelly out of here now that you mentioned it. For a dude that talks,
I agree.
For a dude that talks as much as he does, he is hella mid.
It's a lot of relievers. It's a lot of relievers right now on the White Sox who I think over these next few weeks they pitching for their jobs.
Yes.
Straight up. They really are, because once Garrett Crochet comes back and once Liam Hendriks, who might I add, was only placed on a 15-day disabled list and there's no timetable for his return in the wake of this recent news that he's cancer-free, you know, if he can come back a little bit sooner within the next couple weeks or to a month, we may not even be seeing Reynaldo Lopez get this closer role for a month. We don't know the status of Liam right now. It could easily be Raylo right now, and it could be Garrett Crochet a couple weeks later. So we don't know. But as far as right now, I think Raylo's the best reliever in the pen. And I think as a result of that, we're going to see him close games, and we just going to have to live and die with the results. And I think this is something that a lot of White Sox fans had to have known after the recent events surrounding Liam Hendriks over the last several plus months, because there was nobody who really, outside of him and Crochet, that I could fully trust in that role, unless if you was going to move Michael Kopech back to the bullpen.
I still think Bummer's a guy who could at least hold it for a while. Just we've seen him pitch like that. There's a clip from that Eloy Jimenez walk off at Wrigley Field. Bummer, this was when the Cubs were still a solid squad, and Bummer held them down. We've seen him struggle in the recent past, but he's still got that stuff, and that sweeping slider for lefties. I don't think of him as just a platoon guy. I think he can make pitches to right-handed pitchers. The problem is the same with him and Reynaldo. I think he just has a better handle on his control.
Yeah. But you know what's funny though is like Yaz has a tough time catching Bummer with those sliders and those balls in the dirt. We saw that firsthand on opening night. That's how the Astros scored their first run, on a wild pitch. And I think that has to factor in is the maybe why we haven't seen Bummer getting that closing role, because when you got the bases loaded, you know, you can't afford for a ball to go in the dirt. And Yaz, who we know has been below average defensively throughout the majority of his career behind the plate, is a liability.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't remember that Eloy Jimenez home run for some reason. I don't know what.
Oh, okay.
But
can't help but remember it, Saul. Y'all gave him to us.
He broke his bat. Pedro Strop was pitching.
Go on, man. Anyway, let's move on. Oh
Like,
man, so
I'll
forever be. I'll be 80 years old and I'll always be salty about that Quintana trade. I don't care what anybody tells me. I know the whole like people are like, oh, it was a good trade at the time, or like I was. Hey, and look, coming from me, I guess saying a lot because I was at the game where Quintana probably pitched his best game as a Cub, which was NLDS Game 3 against Scherzer, where he pitched his ass off. So credit to him there, yes. But man, Cease and Jimenez, oh my goodness. But anyways, anyway, Chris, you made a good point though. You actually said about Raylo and how you don't like guys that are just trying to strike out, closers that are just trying to strike out batters. That you know who that reminds me of is a closer I'm not a fan of as a player is Jordan Romano. I think Jordan Romano
said that you don't like him.
Yeah, no, Jordan Romano. I think he's like they hype him up for some reason. Maybe just because they had a winning season with him over there. But he's just that type of guy that he looks like he's just trying to strike out everybody, and we've seen it against like Judge and teams like the Yankees and all that. Eventually, just throws a cookie down the middle of the strike zone because it looks like he's just trying to throw 105 miles an hour half the time, and it's only hitting like 98. So it's like. I don't know. Those guys do make me nervous for sure. And it's like not that Kenley was dominant for a long time, but that's what Kenley looks like now, where like he looks like again like the cutter's flatter, and so he throws a lot more meatballs in there too. But I mean he's getting older, so it makes sense. But it just kind of things where it does make you nervous overall. But yeah, a good thing again on the injury side. As you said, Gabe, that Liam Hendriks is cancer-free, so that's good to hear, and he'll be coming back sooner rather than later. On the negative side, though, Eloy Jimenez is going to be out for 2 to 3 weeks with that hamstring injury. So, yeah, we're going to see more of that means more of Sheets, correct, right? More Sheets in the outfield. And is the reason that they brought up Berger, I forget, does he play any type of outfield, or is it just strictly in?
Berger will never play the outfield.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Berger is a third baseman, and they were giving him reps at first base during spring training in the games that I watched. What you will see is you're going to see Sheets and Berger more than likely platooning.
Okay.
But, getting back on Raylo in defense of him, Raylo didn't give up too many home runs last year. Matter of fact, he never gave up a home run in relief duty until August. And I remember it was in Cleveland in the first game of that series in August against Cleveland that they lost. But so, and I believe Stephen Kwan of all people was the guy that homer off of him. So, you know, Raylo's a guy. Yeah, when he loses his command, he can walk a lot of guys and keep guys on base, you know, but for the most part, he finds a way to get out of jams. And I think he's transitioned very well from being a starter to a reliever, which for some pitchers who are of the mindset that they're going to be a starter their whole career, that's not always easy to do. So I give him kudos and credit for that. Oscar Colas is a guy who's impressed me a lot too. You know, 5 for 14 through his first 3 games. I don't know why a lot of people were worried about him. The dude played professional ball before he came to the States. All he needed was just a year of time to get adapted to the States and showed out in AAA. And I'm a firm believer that if you can hit in Birmingham, you can hit in anywhere, any ballpark. So kudos to Oscar Colas, who I think sooner or later you're going to start seeing that power that you saw in the minors a season ago start to translate at the big league level.
Yeah, and Chris, I want to hear a little bit about what you think about Oscar Colas, but I like the way he plays the game. I feel like he fits in with guys like Tim Anderson, where like they're just out there having like just a grand old time. And I know he made maybe I think it was like a shoestring catch or something like the other day, and he just had this big old smile on his face. Love to see that. So Chris, what has been your impressions on Oscar?
I think he's going to have some growing pains with breaking stuff, but that might be a function of the Sox, just the way that they're swinging through sliders and swinging over the top of those low sliders. But I've liked what I've seen from him. I've liked his approach at the plate. I've liked he looks poised. I think in terms of right fielders, it was always going to be an upgrade. It was always going to be an upgrade over Vaughn and Sheets in right field. But he made that play. I think that had to be the game against Houston. And he came up and he was roaring. And I felt like Luis Robert was coming up like, he was smiling, but I felt like it was kind of like hey, you know, we got 160 left. You got to keep it cool. You know, it's a long season. But I like that. I like that he's excited to be here. I don't think he's going to be Rookie of the Year, but I think he will be a guy that people are talking about as the season goes along. Like, oh, does he have an outside shot? You know, is he a guy that could possibly contend for that slot? Could he put a scare in the presumptive Rookie of the Year? One of those kind of guys. And one of the biggest things for me on a team that's already struck out 99 times, I looked at something earlier and I thought the Sox had 11 walks and 99 strikeouts. It's 44. My glasses.
Oh, okay.
But he's only struck out. You're
looking at Eric Hosmer's numbers. I
think. You know. After hearing the way Talk Harrelson hyped him up his rookie season, I'm all good. I'm all good with that. Eric Hosmer's always just gotten on my nerves, boy. But yet Grandal has 2 strikeouts. Vaughn and Andrews have 3 strikeouts. And Oscar Colas and Andrew Benintendi have 4 strikeouts. So you're seeing veteran guys who you expect to have strikeouts. Yuan, I think, will never kick that habit. And some of that is not on him. Some of that is just on umpires. But I like the fact that Colas has not gotten rung up a lot so far. That might change. You know, at some point, pitchers figure you out. But he seems like a guy who will be able to adapt, and that's the most praise you can give hitters. The best hitters are able to adapt. We saw that with Jose Abreu his whole time. The fact that he got better as the game went on in the later innings, in the era where relievers were paid to get in there, strike you out, and really just throw heat. And not that I'm comparing Oscar to Jose at this time, but I think he's a guy who will be able to adapt to the next starting pitcher and the next starting pitcher and the next pitcher. I like what I've seen.
Yeah, and you know, as we kind of alluded to earlier or talked about, is you know, the rest of the week for the Sox. You know, they play the rest of the series against the Giants. Then they play at Pittsburgh. Real quick on the whole Pittsburgh thing. Their first. Did you guys see the game 1 start time or no? It's 3:12 p.m.
Wow.
It reminds me of a good old. I was a fan of this, by the way. For the record, when I say this, I don't know about you guys because you're Sox fans. I was a fan of that 7-Eleven start time. I thought it was kind of cool.
I did like that.
It's kind
It
of
felt
cool.
like you got a little bit more time to get to the ballpark.
You did because the games used to start at 7:05. I
Right.
remember when I
Yeah,
was a
true.
kid,
Oh, yeah, there you go.
you know, that those were always the times that game started was at 7:05, and I'm still kind of used to those times, even though they don't start at those times anymore. They give you an extra 5 minutes, and that's cool. But yeah, 3:12, yeah, that's gonna be an interesting one to try and get up for if you a player or even if you a fan.
Yeah, well, and then come to think of it, in Pittsburgh, it's gonna be 4:12, so it's but
Yeah, that's weird.
yeah, and then it's well on the topic
Is it
of
April 12th? Is that why? Is it on April 12th?
no, it's April 7th. That one is.
Okay,
I was like,
wow.
I don't know. But no, on the topic of start times, yeah, like the Cubs 6:40, they've been doing that for like a few years now. Makes no sense, but I don't get it.
6:40?
Yeah,
Well,
you haven't noticed
but
the
you know
nighttime
why they
was?
doing that though?
No.
I don't know. Maybe you know what it was.
The reason why they're doing that, from what I was reading across the majors, they're trying to make it accessible for kids who are still in school to watch these games. And I think for like people that are getting off of work or whatever like that, who want to take their family to games and whatnot, because as the season progresses, the start times for night games actually get later.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, and this is something that they've tinkered and experiment with for at least the last couple of years. I'm not in favor of it personally, but this is what they've tried to do, I guess, because of kids having school times, and even if they're not at the games, they want to at least make it accessible for them to watch from home at an earlier time, I guess.
That makes sense and all, but 20 minutes? Like,
yeah, I don't get it either.
the time that, like, I'm cool with the idea, but like the time wise, like, why not just make the game at 6 then, or like 5:30? I don't know. That's just me.
5:30.
No,
most of these, that would be tough. That's tough because you got to think about it, Saul.
True.
Most of these MLB teams and their home ballparks lie within the central business district.
Yeah, true. And then
folks
you
just getting off of work.
Yeah, you're right. But no, I mean, I just think about more of a rounder time. But
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, 6:40 is like, come on. But anyways,
I would have liked the 5:30 game when I was in grade school.
Oh yeah, true.
I think a lot of
you're right.
Would have, in grade school, for kids.
Yeah, man.
Definitely don't like those 11:35 ones. But today I was watching it I was gonna watch it because I was in class. I was like, I'll throw it on in the background while we're out in class. I'm still paying attention. I can pay attention. But of course, we were talking about the Pirates. They've won 3 in a row. They're 4-2, but still, I don't want. That doesn't mean anything. I think you guys will fare well there. But kind of to finish off, we'll touch a little bit on a couple other things that have happened in the league. And I'll name them off, and then you whatever you guys want to say, whichever one you want to pick to talk on, go ahead. But some of the things that we talked about a little bit already was a great start for the Twins with Joey Gallo in there. Obviously, it being the Central, I'm curious what you guys think about that. We talked a little bit about the clock and how it's been with the Machado ejection. You know, I will say my opinion on that is whether you think it's an overreaction or not by the umpire there. It's the rule. The rule's a rule, and I think that with Machado taking forever there, it's kind of like one of those things where that's why they made the rule, because it kind of took like the Pete Alonso thing, getting back to first base the first couple of days. I understand a little bit of the outrage there, but when you got a guy like Manny Machado who literally like leaned back and then he was like doing something with his gloves, and I'm like, come on, man, it's literally why they made the rule. But anyways, and then Sandy Alcantara, like, just of course doing what he does. He had another great start today. Like, he could easily go back to back with that Cy Young. And then I don't know if you guys heard about this today because it came out today, but Oliver Matamoros, from the manager for the Cardinals, called out Tyler O'Neill for his lack of effort. He called it unacceptable. It was a play where there was a base hit into right, and O'Neill was on second, and he was not in a hurry whatsoever to come home. And Ronald Acuna Jr. Threw him out easily. The Cardinal skipper was not happy with that whatsoever. Tyler O'Neill, though, as a Cubs fan, I'm enjoying this, the drama, and it got even spicier because Tyler O'Neill, when they asked him about the whole benching, because they benched him today, he said that it all started well. Like his comments were like, oh yeah, he prides himself on being like a guy that hustles a lot, whatever. And then he finished it off by saying that those conversations could have been kept in house. So he's like, and I'm not saying he's right or wrong there, but again, stirs the pot a little more. So the plot thickens. But anyways, any other any of those ones that you guys want to talk on? We gave any of those or any of those things stand out to you or you have thoughts on?
I have to see what happened
Yeah.
with Machado. I really do. This
Mhm.
isn't his first rodeo with that. Because if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah.
in spring training, he stepped out the box and he got a strike called on him. And he was one of the first guys, who has shown basically through video evidence with that incident in spring training that it's going to take him a while to get adjusted to these new rules. Because he loves to take his time, in the box or whatever.
Mhm.
But Sandy Alcantara doing what he do, no, that don't shock me at all. I mean, he's a pitcher who I appreciate a great deal in today's game because in an era where, you don't see too many guys going over 6 consistently, he does it. And he takes pride in it. And you're not going to see too many pitchers that pitch over 200 innings in a season in this time of baseball, but with him, you have to expect it at this point. And the stuff that he has is so elite. And I to this day, I don't understand how St. Louis let not only him go, but Adolis Garcia, guys that were prized prospects once upon a time in the Cardinals organization.
And a Rosarena.
And Randy Rosarena as well. So, for them to commit those type of blunders and me being a guy that loves the St. Louis Cardinals and the Atlanta Braves, I don't get how they did that. But Miami got a gem. They got a gem with him, and hopefully they could build a winner around him because he, to me, has become the face of their franchise. And in the wake of everything that franchise went through, with the death of Jose Fernandez, they finally got an ace now with Sandy Alcantara.
Yeah, man, it's one of those things where you just, what could have been, right, with Jose Fernandez. Who knows where he would have been now? And hey, you never know. He could have still been part of that, as a vet in that rotation with, Marlins could have been a whole different team. I just think about it. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, you did, you make some good points there. I mean, he's so good, and he is like a breath of fresh air compared to like a lot of the guys in the league and the way he pitches and the way he does his thing, and he's so reliable. But Chris, anything else? Anything of any of the topics that stand out to you for the ones that I mentioned?
That Cardinals thing is really interesting because previously you saw the Cardinals not be buttoned up, but we've talked about them. They're a boring team, and they're boring by design. Things like that happen, they're taken care of quickly and quietly. They're like, they replace cats like Stepford Wives, like, or what was it, like Ba Sing Se, when they had Julie, and they had another Julie ready on deck the next day when she started asking questions. That's what the Cardinals are. They're like, you don't toe the line, we're replacing you with insert baseball player here. And for Tyler O'Neill to come out and say that after his manager talked about him, he was like, I think you would expect to see it in sports. There are managers who are willing to go to the press and just talk openly with the press, like, hey, we expected more from him in this situation. But we didn't really see that from the Cardinals, not that I can recall. And so they've been kind of going through it over the past few years since Tony La Russa decided to retire and never manage another baseball game again. And for my part, I like it too. Like I've got some friends down Peoria who are Cardinals fans, and they're my friends. But they got that Yankee syndrome, man. And so there's just times, bro. And I'm good with it because not only that, whether he was joking or not, I saw a quote from Miles Michaelis saying that Lars Nootbaar shouldn't bring his medal in the clubhouse, and there's a bunch of guys in there who would not be like good with him bringing the medal in the clubhouse. That is the most old man.
Wait, no, I will say
graphic thing I've ever heard.
Wait, I will say this. I will say this actually, Chris, on that, I actually watched the interview and he was messing around. He even was like, nah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Hey, it's just a classic. No, but look, bring up a good point. It's one of the classic things that you see like sports, like some sports pages, certain ones always do it too. It's like the score or something else. Like I
Oh,
forgot what it
it
is.
was like it wasn't MLB, but it was like
Yeah.
Bleacher Report or something.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
lifted the quote and put it in a graphic, and I was like,
yeah.
"Is this real? Did he really say this?"
It's always like that, right? They always do that, and yeah, I don't blame you. Like, just when you see it, because it happens to me all the time too. I look at it and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna watch the interview just to see how he said it, because Miles Mikolas actually he said it, and then he was like, nah. It's like, and then he went on to say like, like he did great over there with Japan and all that. But no,
Okay.
yeah,
No, I apologize to the dude because I had no problem. I like Miles Michaels. I
yeah.
really and then I saw that and I was like, did he fall in his trap? Like, is he a full on Cardinal now?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting because they did not get where they wanted with their previous manager. I just remember that. I'm the Cardinals fans. Being friends with them, you see people talk on Facebook, and you just talk to them, and they were not enthused with previous manager, and so they had to make a change. But if some cracks are showing, then maybe we have exited that era where they're just somehow, some way. And when you talked about those prospects that they let go who have become stars, bona fide stars, Sandy Alcantara, by the way, is already number 9 all time in Marlins WAR, which is ridiculous. Like, I know it's a little weighted more heavily for starting pitchers, but that's ridiculous.
That's wild.
Maybe with some cracks in the foundation that are showing. Like, the Cardinals won't be able to bring up insert player here in August, and he's going to be all world.
Joe Random. Yeah, that's what. It literally doesn't matter who they bring up. It's ridiculous. Brendan Donovan, like Lars Nootbaar, respect. He played his ass off in the World Baseball Classic. Respect went a little bit up. But like, you watch a guy like, look, and Tommy Edman is good. He's a good player. But like, when he came up, I'm like, there's no way. Like, this dude, come on. This guy. And then he just goes off. And I'm like, of course this guy goes off. Surprisingly, and it's always the guys that they expect to go off that don't actually, like Dylan Carlson, for example, who has not really been the player they expected him to be so far. But yeah, hopefully you're right, Chris. Is Craig? So I'm surprised that Gabe said he likes the Cardinals. As a story for nothing. We could keep that.
I like the Cardinals for one because I mean, one, they was always a rival of the Cubs. They won. Albert Pujols, they have a very rich history. And I grew up, with a lot of Atlanta Braves games on national television with TBS. Every weekend when the White Sox weren't really playing well, those were the two teams that I always watched. And with them being so close to the Chicagoland area, and with my father, being an SIU grad and seeing that they had a constituency in Carbondale, it was kind of like, why not follow this team? And with La Russa having Sox ties previously, to me, the Cardinals have always been the Major League Baseball in my lifetime what the Spurs are to the NBA. They always drafted well. They always developed talent well. And I always respected that. They weren't trying to be the flashy team, but even though they were a small market team, they felt like a big market team with all the stars that they had. And I mean, even with La Russa leaving, they've had some good years under their managers, such as Matheny and Schilt, but it's an expectation to win in St. Louis. And I've always respected that with those fans. And it's a baseball town. And it's one of the few towns that you will ever see in professional sports in the major leagues where they don't have any other major sports franchise to really share space with them outside of the Blues. And we all know that hockey isn't as popular of a game in America as it is in Canada. So I've always just been a avid admirer of what they've been able to build there. Yeah, and there's some chinks in the armor. I'll say that, especially after looking at the way that they let those guys walk. I think the death of Oscar Taveras played a role in that as well, who was a prize prospect for them. And, hopefully Jordan Walker can rise up to the bar and live up to the hype for them as well, who I think is a very tremendous young talent, to watch it. At least he was on a minor league level. It remains to be seen what he does at the show, but I know he has a lot of intrigue and interest amongst fans there.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, they definitely have a rich history, unfortunately, for the Cubs. But hey, I will say this: no matter what, though, who owns that postseason record, or who has a better postseason record against each other, and that one, or has that win? Sorry, I should say the one postseason series win, the Cubs, baby.
I know, and I know that was a big deal for you guys. I remember that very well. That was a big deal for you guys. So I give you guys credit on that one.
Yeah, no, I was like, oh, that for real. It's like with the Cardinals fans. I have a friend that's a Cardinals fan, and like anytime he tries to like say something to me about what I don't know, just like 2015. But anyways, I'll finish off with this. We're talking about Tyler O'Neill. And I'll play a clip of it so you guys can hear it. I feel like this dude sounds like Bruce Wayne. Listen to this.
I'm just going to continue to get my work in, get my reads in, make sure I'm getting that right jump off the bat and cutting the corners as good as I can.
Also, if you just look at him, see when he's talking.
Best effort every time. I got up through the minor leagues and into the big leagues, playing hard, and playing scrappy. And
like I don't know if you told me that Tyler O'Neill, because he also, for all those who don't know, he also is jacked. So like I wouldn't be surprised if you told me that he's Batman in his downtime. I wouldn't be surprised because of the way he talks and like his like neck veins. He just like I don't know. I just things I was paying attention on, but that's I don't know. It's stuff I thought about today when I was looking at the interview. But anyways, that is this edition of the At Bat Baseball podcast. We'll come back next week and hopefully more to talk more positives when it comes to Dansby, when it comes to Liam Hendricks getting closer to coming back. Of course, you can see Gabe Wilkins on the Open Run podcast. As Gabe said, he hasn't seen a lot of baseball games, and I'm sure that NBA takes a lot of his attention as well because it's getting hot out there, and the Bulls are in the play-in round, which I'm not super excited about, but it's cool to see at least get to watch a couple extra games there. But we'll see. You never know, right? Once the games, once it goes down. I saw Chris Middleton is out. He came out of the game tonight, so you never know. Bulls sneak in, and we'll never know, right? But and then also Chris Pennant on the Skyhook podcast. The season tips off May 6th, I think, in general, right? But for the Sky, it's is it the 19th? Am I saying that correctly?
It's a little weird.
I saw that. I was looking at it.
I think the big thing that everybody's excited about that's pretty cool is that they're playing the Minnesota Lynx up in Toronto on the 13th. I know that's the 13th. I know a friend of mine out in Calgary, Alberta, who did end up getting tickets to that. So shout out to Lindsay and Naveen. Y'all getting to go to that game. It's going to be hype. But yeah, the Sky season tips off soon. It's going to be a Donnybrook of a season.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. And so tune in to Skyhook podcast with him and James K. And again, Saul Rodriguez. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys next week.